Welcome, guys. If you don't mind, would you please introduce yourself individually so that people know a little bit more about you and your background?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Lisa McClory. I'm a solicitor in England and Wales, and I advise Web3 businesses on law and compliance. I'm the CEO and founder of Fractal.Legal.
Hello everyone, I'm Mohamed Ezeldin. I'm the head of Tokenomics at Animoca brands, and I've got a background in mathematics and education.
Hello everyone, my name is Sara Simeone. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NFTs, and I'm also the co-chair of the startup working group at Crypto Valley Association.
Hi everyone, I'm Ross Murray-Jones, the CEO at Rand. We are the largest NFT platform on Algorand and the fastest growing NFT platform on Ripple. A little fun fact about me, I started my career at the WEF at the tender age of 22, so come full circle a few years later.
As you see, we have quite a mixed group of speakers today, so I'm very excited myself to hear the different perspectives on the topic of NFTs. But maybe let's start with a simple questions to help Rob to understand his situation with his personal collection. Are NFTs dead? Ross, do you want to go?
It's a very good question. So if anyone who was around here in 2019 might have believed that altcoins were dead. I don't believe that NFTs are dead. I believe that NFTs are transforming. I believe that builders are building. Pudgy Penguins, for example, are reimagining IP. We've got businesses like TravelX, which are transforming legacy markets. We've got huge brands like Coca-Cola that are innovating. There's a lot that is happening behind the scenes, and really we're just getting started. So no, NFTs are not dead, and the best founders and investors are mobilizing right now.
Sarah, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think NFTs are evolving, and in order to look at the future, I always say that we need to look at the past, right? And I want to bring an example from the Web2 space, and that's Google. In 1998, when they started indexing the whole web. Then in 2011, they realized that they had a lot of bad content, and so in 2012, basically, they had to start doing a little bit of tweaking to the algorithm and get rid of all the duplicate content and the bad content. And then, fast forward, and they had to start eliminating all the illegal copyrighted content. Now, and then we are here today where they are just a massive, corporate. And so, there are some analogies there with the NFT space and with AI as well. Right, whatever we've seen so far, a lot of different types of use cases, some good, some bad. But still, I think, we are now starting to see the real companies coming out from after this bear market. We've all been busy building useful use cases that are basically needed for the next wave. So I just think on NFTs that, no, I think we are still, probably climbing the slope of enlightenment, really. That's where we are, I think.
Oh, your perspective.
So I think NFTs went through death over 2023 and sort of come out the other side. And the best way to judge if something is alive or if it's died is by the floor price from an NFT. So seeing a lot of the floor price, especially for newer collections that have 10, 20, 30, 40x over the past 6 to 9 months. Notable mention to like Mochaverse or Grapes NFTs who really had a big rise. We have seen some of the existing blue chips from the last cycle are down, but they're slowly coming back. And I think it's since NFTs are community driven, it's all about getting the community re-engaged. And as we start seeing more wealth pour into crypto through IP activations, just through games as well that are coming out. There was a big GameFi narrative a few years back, and there were no good games. I mean, who remembers playing a fun Web3 game? Who's ever played a fun Web3 game? Okay, there we go. Absolutely. And there's some amazing experiences in Sandbox as well. But we're going to see a lot more fun Web3 games coming out over the course of the next year. And some of that value will transpose over into NFTs or continue moving into NFTs. So NFTs have died. They've come back. And this is not a biblical story.
Thank you. Lisa, how do you think?
Yeah, I think NFTs, as they began, it was almost the most obvious use case for them to attach a piece of art, because there's an obvious market for artworks which require this proof of authenticity and certification. And the real utility of NFTs hasn't even started yet, and that's what we're going to talk about next. I think, what's coming up for NFTs, but certainly I agree that there's a lot happening behind the scenes that you just don't really see reported in the media at all. Conversely to AI, where there's huge amounts of hype, and you think, well, really, if you have this technology, AI, that manipulates data and makes things less trustworthy, surely the counterbalance to that is something like NFTs, where you can attach a file, you can provide a proof of uniqueness. They're just so useful for so many different use cases. Which is both an opportunity and also a challenge. We have this one overarching regulatory regime and one tech approach for NFTs and bundle them all together, but there's so many different things, from kind of community-driven projects to fan tokens to the sorts of use cases I get asked about, which are almost kind of tokenization of real-world assets, and attaching certificated securities, the use of NFTs for financial market infrastructure. All of that post kind of Bitcoin ETF, I think, will start to really kick off this year, and certainly we're seeing a lot of inquiries about that. And it's just a question of whether or not the infrastructure around allowing traditional businesses to access information about NFTs can move fast enough to let us get there.
So basically we can agree that the trend of putting a colorful picture of an animal on the blockchain and selling that for a lot of money is sort of getting boring, and it turned out that those unique items were not that unique. So that special niche of NFT use cases is going away, or would you say that's still here to stay?
I disagree. I disagree. I think it's got a place, right? So obviously I run a marketplace. I would say 70% of my marketplace is still sort of speculative assets. There's still a demand for that, and I think that demand will rise as we come into another bull cycle. So what we'll see, in my point of view, not financial advice, is that we will start to see an inflow of capital into Bitcoin and Ethereum, which will then go into altcoins, and then that will lead into more speculative assets like NFTs, and we will see a resurgence to where we were before. Having said that, there's still that 30% of the business, which is very interesting to me, which is a bit more innovative. And so our job at Rand is to stay on top of that innovation and make sure that our platform is compatible with all the different myriad of use cases that are coming out. But I still think there's a place for speculation, and I think that's going to have a huge resurgence.
Do you think something has changed in the way the NFTs, the pictures that are collectibles, how they were looked 2021 and how they look now? Is there a utility attached to that was not there before, or is it pure collectibles without special purpose that people are really looking for?
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so depends is the answer. Yeah, it depends. So there are plenty of NFTs that are purely for the art, and people love the art. What we've seen, I think I mentioned it in my first answer, is that builders are building. There's a lot of folks who have been quietly squirreling away, building utility for the projects, building their community, and making something truly amazing. And we've already started to see grassroots of that. Also, as a platform, we have got better at serving our customers. Like, we realized that it was pretty pointless putting money into marketing over the last year and a half. So where have we put our money? We put it into building. We built better products, better features, better tools. We've been expanding. So that's there to serve the collectors. Even though, we're creator-led, we're also there to serve the collectors as a two-sided marketplace.
Mm. Sara, what do you experience in the world of collectibles?
Well, so you asked a very interesting question, right, about the images. And I've been doing some research for the past year and a half, because on the side I'm also lecturing as well, so I had to do this kind of material for my students. It was very interesting to see the evolution of some of these platforms. OpenSea has just announced OpenSea 2.0. They're going to actually start, the platform will look totally different, with e-tickets as well, like, with calendars, features. So there is definitely a different approach, and we're seeing as well on your side, right, Ross, that, we need to add a little bit more experience, UI and UX as well to our platforms, and of course engagement. From this bear market, I can definitely see that there are some very interesting use cases that are coming out as winners. So we definitely have memberships. We saw Starbucks, right? Massive, amazing success there. But why? Because they already had an established user base that was very loyal to the brand. All they had to do was to just drop, an email. You were special to me. Just go and get it. And also it was free. And then, of course, we have other example in the automotive industry, Fiat, right? They've done an amazing e-pass. The whole experience attached to that membership is fantastic. And it's all attached also to the electric car. So there is a green element there as well. But then from the collectible art perspective, there is one that is actually come out as winner. And for me, it's Pudgy Penguins. They started from this little image, and now they started to actually branch out to toys and movies. And, that is definitely a winner. But again, when we're looking at all these use cases I just mentioned, they are all B2C sort of use cases. And that, again, is more around engagement, trying to marketing and engagement. We, at least at NFTs, we are focused more on the B2B side. And I'm surprised because when I'm talking to a lot of these companies, they see the value in actually promoting NFTs to their clients, but they don't see the value of actually having NFTs within their organization to increase trust and transparency and, start really making sense of some of the processes within their organization and make them a little bit more, tangible for their employees, giving them, for instance, badges for employee of the month, or just, start tokenizing the whole process of documents. But that is where we need to go next.
Mo, anything to add to that?
So when the rise of the NFTs in 2021 came about, my initial thesis was it was going to be gaming NFTs that were really going to explode because the utility made sense. But what we actually saw, it was PFPs, so profile pictures. And it was for a much simpler reason. It was I can associate with someone else in the same community by having the same profile picture. So if you've got two penguins or in the same community, we have two apes, we have two dogs, we have two, whatever that might be.
Absolutely.
It's a very easy way for people to associate. And then when we add the speculation layer on top, it's then I want to be part of a community or an ecosystem that I think there will be more value to derive or to extract from that. And that's why we saw a number of notable blue chip NFTs sort of rise up during that bull run, and most of which are down as of now, but they're down because the liquidity in the space isn't there. I think from the collectible standpoint, I think there is a space for collectibles in the NFT industry, but I think it's one of the verticals that NFTs can stand for. So we've spoken about collectibles, in-game assets, PFPs, tokenizing real-world assets, and we're really just starting to feel and experience how we can actually leverage and use NFTs. Quick Shill, Open Campus, Animoca Brands is education protocol. We've leveraged NFTs in a brand new way, and it's sort of tokenizing revenue and tokenizing real world asset. And the way we've done that on our subsidiary TinyTap is an edtech platform, and they've got quite a unique value proposition. Parents pay a subscription, teachers generate content in a gamified way, and the profit that's generated is split between the teacher and between the platform. That's Web 2, nothing to do with Web 3. So we thought, oh, how can we tokenize this? Where does it make sense? And we took the revenue that's being generated off of these courses, and we said, oh, cool, we'll do what we do in Web 2. You have a multiplier, let's multiply it by 5, and then an investor can come in and buy the future revenue that's being generated by this. But in doing so, they don't become an investor. What they become is a co-publisher, because now the onus is on them to co-publish that material. But what was super interesting is when we did this, we did it in an auction mechanic as a proof of concept in November 2022. We ended up raising just over $400,000, half of which went to the teachers. So there were 12 teachers in this proof of concept. One was an elementary school teacher, and she walked away with just over $37,000. So when we talk about how can technology have an impact in real life, that's an example of how we can mix the technology with what's actually happening in the real world and come up with hybrid solutions, at least as a first step for mass onboardment.
It's an amazing story.
Thanks.
It's real.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It's lovely.
It's very exciting, and this is what gets me so excited about it. It's like we now just moved the conversation from collectible to education on the blockchain and form of NFTs. Lisa, do you mind getting a little bit into more detail in the tokenized asset space that you have mentioned before? What use cases do you see there, and how the technology transformed in this direction?
Yeah, I think it's incredible how much technology can transform our kind of socio-economic environment. You think back a few years ago, it would have been hard to imagine buying a train ticket and using your Apple Wallet, and that's now completely common. But thinking about asset tokenization, building on what Mo said, I think it's really powerful that there are many projects where communities are using NFT and Web3 technology to access different ways of engaging with the environment, whether that might be a forest or indigenous community that's expressing their experience of how it feels to be in the forest. I heard the other day about an indigenous community that had tokenized the sound of the forest where they live, and had thereby raised money to allow their community to live more independently and to invest in building up resources and healthcare and things like that. So at that, I hope that will grow, these kind of regenerative finance and sustainability projects that allow people to communicate more about what they find valuable and express that in an NFT that other people can then engage and communicate with them through collecting. And it's a really powerful human instinct to collect things. I just think about, art, for example. We've got so many different ways of engaging with art, and it's quite tactile. But maybe what's missing with NFTs for other people who don't engage digitally so readily is some more better user interfaces and different ways that people can experience their NFT collection. I think it would be very exciting to imagine what role the NFTs might play in the metaverse, and how people can tokenize things that they own in that environment. As regards asset tokenization on a more kind of technical and legal level, I think that area, there's such a lot of work to do, particularly around how exactly assets are stapled to NFTs. There's an awful lot of missing clarity about what you actually get when you buy an NFT, and whether or not, if say it's a real estate tokenization, whether the token is an independent digital property right in its own regard, or whether or not it's a register constituting the asset, or whether or not you buy an NFT collectible and you acquire the underlying intellectual property rights. It's a challenge for the industry to think about how to explain that to consumers in an easy way. Looking at what happened with the data protection regulations, you just end up with lots of banners that nobody reads. So we need some innovation really to help people engage with their rights and what they acquire when they get a digital asset in a more tech-enabled and sort of friendly and easy to understand way.
Thank you. In Switzerland, as far as I know, there is at least one house that is officially issued as an NFT. Yeah. However, it is also entered in the registry of land, and the NFT is just a funny add-on to the actual old school bureaucracy. Do you see any use cases where we already bridged the gap between the old world and the new world, where the NFT version, the tokenized asset, is at least as well as valid as the old school paper version?
Yeah, well, Euroclear did a bond issuance, which is a digitally native bond, recently with World Bank and the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. So that's an example with that sort of security where the actual blockchain can constitute the ledger. As I understand it, I think they may have used permission technology rather than decentralized technology. So I guess there are challenges for use of decentralized technology for for financial market infrastructure purposes. I guess there's a question for regulators about how they engage and what constitutes good decentralization or governance principles for decentralized ledgers. But yeah, there's definitely challenges around using the blockchain as a ledger for land, owing to the fact that usually in many jurisdictions you have this centralized register that's a public utility effectively that's already existent, so there needs to be some reform on a public sector level to existing infrastructure to allow open access to APIs and maybe sometimes reform of the law. Certainly in England and Wales there have been pilots where they've explored utilising HM Land Registry and how that would work and speed up property transfers. But it's a concept rather than reality at the moment, and any tokenization would have to be a sort of tokenization of a fund or beneficial interest. And again, you know, there are many legal questions about how that's done. The Investment Association has just released a paper on fund tokenization with proposals for an upcoming blueprint about how that complies with regulation, but there's a lot still up in the air at the moment.
Thank you. And from your world, do you see this transfer from the previous, well, let's say Web 2 version of same equivalent, I think in gaming, an in-game asset that used to be owned within just one platform that is now moving into an NFT decentralized approach. How far are we in this journey?
When you ask the questions, are NFT dead? I wish the terminology NFT was dead, because it has such a negative connotations around it. And when we talk about gamers and we talk about adoption, whenever we mention any of the native terms in Web3, it's instantly red flags. It's like we use Instagram, Facebook, all of these different apps. Do we say this is built on JavaScript or this is built using this technology? We don't care. We just want a front end where I can go in, I can access, I can sign in with email. Maybe at some point in the future, for Web 2 onboardment, I can sign in with wallet, but just keeping it as easy and as the user journey being as it is now, and abstract away all of the Web 3 nonsense, if you like, to the back end, and allow the user to discover that via their journey, where maybe I'm playing a game, I unlock a skin or a special weapon in the game, and all of a sudden, that's something that's worth a considerable amount of money. And that's relative, because if I'm in the Philippines, considerable might be $20. If I'm in the West, considerable might be $2,000. And then at that point, I'm now motivated to go and learn more. I have an asset or I have a skin or an in-game item that's worth something. Now I'm going on this journey because I want to go on this learning journey to understand, why is it an NFT? Why am I able to sell it? Why am I not keeping 100% of the proceeds? Why is 5% going to the content creator? And I really start to have more of a motivational push versus what we currently see, which is the incentive layer. A lot of the people in the space, maybe not on the building side, but at least on the interaction side, are there because they want free money or they want a nice ROI. And we can't take that away from the space. And I don't think that's an indictment of the space. I think it's actually quite positive, because people are finding a way to generate income with new asset classes. And I'll take a step back. We spoke about the ICO boom and altcoins in 2019, and then we have Web3. For me, crypto and Web3 are very different things. Crypto is all about the underlying technology. It's about the actual fungible tokens themselves. Yet when we talk about Web3 and NFTs, it's about the culture. And what NFTs have really been able to capture is culture and what binds people together. And that's what we need to be selling, as opposed to you own your data. How many of us remember a few years back when Facebook brought out WhatsApp? How many of us remember that?
Yeah.
Quick show of hands. How many of us downloaded maybe Signal or Telegram because we don't want our data taken? How many of us still use WhatsApp? Yeah. And that's exactly the problem. Even though we know our data isn't secure or we don't have ownership of our data, we're still using platforms like WhatsApp. And it's around network effects and shared network effects, or just getting critical mass onto new types of platform. And we've sort of seen that with Telegram, and we haven't really seen it with Signal, and specific to this example. So when we expect the masses to move somewhere else, there needs to be a catalyst, there needs to be a push or a pull that isn't necessarily incentive driven. And it's always good to look historically at maybe the rise of WhatsApp, and it was the fact that the BlackBerry Messenger, for those of us old enough to remember that was in an enclosed ecosystem that I had to own a BlackBerry phone to get access to BlackBerry Messenger, and that was great for a few years. But as soon as WhatsApp open source, and it's like, great, you can be on Android and on Apple, it was game over. And the subsequent effect was BlackBerry's market share went to zero. So I guess to summarize network effects, we need to stop using the terminology that we understand and really abstract the technology to the back end and allow users to come in for, if it's a game, because it's a fun game, because I'm able to play with my friends and connect online, and then discover the true power and value of NFTs and other digital assets via their own journey into the space. And I guess on that one, Web 2.5, in my opinion, doesn't exist. Like we have Web 2, 2.1, 2.2, and maybe 2.8, 2.9, and Web 3. This holy land of Web 2.5 doesn't exist.
Animoca brand is huge in Web3 gaming, right?
Yeah.
How does the traditional gaming industry see you and the NFT-based gaming? Are they feeling the danger? Are they trying to simulate what you're doing? Are they trying to fight you?
I mean, I think in Web 2, everyone's trying to fight everyone because that's just the mindset and the ethos. But then, I mean, you look at Steam and you look at Epic Games, like one's very closed off, one's quite open to it. For us, it's just about, and I alluded to shared network effects. We have so many subsidiaries that are game studios. How can we build fun games fundamentally? So when we look at the user base, we look at Web 2 as a user base who want to come in and play games. And then how can we get them in from playing one game and to then go in and play different titles within our ecosystem? But then on the Web 3 side, your token holder, be it fungible or non-fungible, may not really care about the gameplay aspect. But what they do care about is there being some form of value that they're able to extract for themselves. How can we create two different ecosystems or two different layers within an economy that's sustainable to engage both based on the personas, and we use the term personas a lot, but based on the persona that they entail. So for us, it's carry on building good games. We have a number of releases that are coming out this year where it's actually fun games where gamers can come in, where we can abstract most of the blockchain away, but then the tokens and the digital assets associated to that, we can create what we're calling meta games, which is a meta layer around the game itself, which is around the lore of the game, maybe around some form of revenue share or just around that speculative element, but making sure that there's distinguished, or there's a difference between game and meta game. If that made any sense.
I think so. Thank you. Sara, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, one thing, Mo mentioned already a few things, right? For me, is cross-collaboration, something that we really need to nurture in the next wave, in the next bull run. And one of the things like Lisa and I have been working quite closely, right? What can a lawyer and technologists do together? Well, they either hate each other, they love each other, I always say. In our case, we really like to work together because I like to actually listen to, the real needs that people have. And I think, that's one thing that we always forget when we talk about technology. Let's build a product. Instead, let's listen to what the clients really need, what their pain points are. And, that is crucial. So by working together with Lisa, we started to, because actually, step back, I went to Lisa because I started to receive some inbound inquiries from law firms who actually needed our support to drop basically criminal charges to crypto fraudsters. And of course, I mean, these people are anonymous online, so they had to do some sort of research, of course, I mean, with regards to who is who, and use the usual suspects from Chainalysis to Elliptic and Merkle Science and so on and so forth. But then they needed the technology to actually drop all these court proceedings or cease and desist letters and so much more. And, me being new to this, legal space, I went to Lisa, and Lisa started to tell me all about, this market. And we started to develop products. And together with my co-founder who's sitting there, Sebastiano Cataudo, we started basically to listen to Lisa and create Nifty Send on the back of that. And I will talk a little bit more about that later this afternoon when I'm going to showcase the product. But we basically realized that lawyers, accountants, these kind of businesses that we are aiming, they are our target audience. They don't want to know anything about the underlying technology. All they want to do is to actually send a court proceeding to an anonymous person, full stop. So we had to go back to the drawing board, look at, the tool that they're using daily, which is their email inbox. And so Seb created actually this amazing thing where basically you can email either to an email address or to a wallet using your own standard email inbox. You can add your documents in there. You can just send it, and then we take charge of that email, and we just basically ship it as an NFT. It's an unlockable NFT. So that basically is quite revolutionizing for lots of different aspects, from commercial aspects, process aspect, and it really enabled them to actually do something revolutionary without even touching, a wallet. I think that's important. And that's only one part, right? Then there is also another element. Back to the use cases. I actually, while Lisa was talking, I saw you smiling a little bit when she talked about tokenization of sounds, right? And I totally understand where you come from. But then on the other side, when I talk to businesses on a daily basis, I realize that they sit on a lot of intangible assets. They don't even know how, first of all, that they have them, and second of all, how to monetize them. So they have to start talking to professionals who understand that, hey, there is a way actually to do, to create revenue out of something that you may think you have. And let us, brainstorm this, and let us, help you to actually create new business and revenue models to actually do that. And one example is in the real estate space. So when, you were talking about real estate, tokenization, that's one way, but we actually had some property developers coming to us that wanted to create e-passports for the actual building, and then to actually attach to that e-passports all the documentation of that building. In England, for instance, we had a lot of problems with Grenfell fires, like, cladding issues, all these things needs to be put somewhere. And there are a lot of different tools that these builders have, contractors have. There's fragmentation throughout the whole supply chain. So this is like, an additional way of actually using. So again, we always talk about tokenization of processes. So for us, it's about tokenizing processes rather than tokenizing an asset. We need to go step by step. We always try to go to the end, but then we don't realize that people are not following us on the way. Our customers are not following us on the way. So, we need to take it step by step.
Thank you. That's super exciting. Ross, what else is there on RAND that was not yet mentioned that you think is right now a very exciting use case for NFTs?
Wow. Yeah, there is a lot. Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack from the last 10 minutes, I think.
We have more time, no worries.
When token?
Yeah, no. I think we can summarize the last 10 minutes in what's the why? That's all the consumer really cares about. Blockchain is so much about the how and the what, but the consumer really just cares about the why. And so we're at, if we think, where are we in crypto adoption? That's all like that whole, we're still early 10 years on, but it's because we're still at sort of 1998 in terms of crypto adoption. So what's gonna actually help us cross the chasm into the real world? And there's a lot of experiments going on. There's a lot of innovation going on, some of which we've heard today. But what's really going to help, and NFTs can act as a gateway into this beautiful, borderless virtual world that we've created, because fundamentally they're simple to understand. But what is going to help us cross that chasm or chasm? I never know how to say that word. Gaming could be one of them, right? Mm-hmm. So what is our job then? What is our job if we want to sort of target Web3? If we want to target the 5 billion people that don't own a wallet, that don't own a digital asset, that are not native to crypto, what is our role? What's our mission? Our mission is to build beautiful products that abstract away that complexity. So the why is really important. And there's a lot of work that still needs to happen in that respect. So what am I excited about? Well, the cool thing about RAND is that I mentioned at the beginning, our job is to stay on top of innovation, is to work with we've launched over 1,000 creators, 2,000 collections. We've helped folks from around the world monetize their creativity, create a a job for themselves from sort of Turkey to Indonesia, where they can put out their artwork and they can make a living because of the rails that we've created. We still got a bit of a job in terms of abstracting away that complexity, but that's because we're focused on power users. That's another topic. So what am I excited about? You were talking about land preservation. You know, there's folks on our platform that are offering NFTs that represent land ownership, where you can go and see, and it's really about land preservation. We've got folks who are building comic books. We've got films that have been released, tickets. There's a lot that's going on. It's very exciting to see and to have the sort of be at the forefront of that and have the driving seat. So I'm excited.
Cool, thank you. Before you mentioned, I was smiling when you mentioned the sounds of the forest. I was actually imagining straight away in my head Gary Gensler shouting, "That's security." How do you see regulation in NFT world? Like, maybe I will not start with the lawyer here. Ross, in Rand, how do you perceive the current regulatory framework? Is it clear? Is it helpful? Is it blocking your business, or is it, well, not there?
So I have a golden goose in our business, and it's a lovely lady called Helen, who is our general counsel. She spent 7 years at the FCA, financial services lawyer, much smarter than I am. And I'm the one who comes up with the ideas, and she's the one that says that's illegal. But not everyone has a Helen, right? So we're very, very fortunate. I think there's a bit more clarity these days, certainly around NFTs. I'm British. You've probably realised by the accent. I am a little bit frustrated with the UK regulator. I don't think they've made it very easy for us. I think, if anything, they've made the environment very hostile for crypto innovation. And I'm the one that's been suffering for the last few years, but it will be the UK that suffers in years to come. So there is innovation. It's not perhaps happening in the UK because it's been a very, very difficult market in order to get anything done. Sort of fun anecdotes, not so fun for me, but fun hopefully for you guys. We were accepted onto the FCA sandbox back in 2021, which is fairly coveted. And we realized, whilst working closely with the FCA, that the iteration of the business that we had back then was not going to work in the UK environment. We were spending so much time, energy, money, which, as a startup you just don't have, educating the retailer, the regulator. And we were finding that actually, instead of them being friendly and responsive, they were becoming more hostile and making it increasingly harder for us to grow as a business. And so we had to shift away. And really the UK is just a holdings business for us these days, which is a bit of a shame. Having said that, I feel there is a bit more regulation, a bit more understanding these days, certainly in the European landscape. NFTs are relatively safe as long as we know exactly what we need to do and not do as a marketplace. So we have legal opinions which are backed up and double backed up in the US where we're operational. US obviously a tough market in terms of what we can and can't do. So what we've done is built a proprietary onboarding system which is unique to us, which scans on several different occasions for things like security risks, scans for IP infringements, scans for not safe for work content. We've also had to do things to make sure that we're not targeting countries that we shouldn't be, such as sanctioned countries, things like that. So we have put protocols in place in order to make sure that we're on the right side of the law. It is a little bit easier with NFTs than perhaps other things. Our job is just to make sure that we stay out of jail.
Maybe one question to you specifically. Fraud and scams were mentioned before. Do you think we need regulation in place in order to tackle and combat scams, or we can do that without AML regulation in a traditional sense, because there is other technology that could be used to actually prevent some scam, or that's just the price we have to pay if you want to be in the field?
I think I'm going to say something very, very shocking right now, that scams and fraud is not unique to Web3.
Yeah.
So it does get a bad rap, and we were actually talking about this earlier. You know, there's still plenty of people, normies as we'd like to call them, who believe that blockchain is simply used to buy drugs, which, 10 years ago that was perhaps the case. Anyone who says they were in blockchain 10 years ago was definitely buying drugs. Having said that, we've moved a long way since then, and there's so many different use cases, there's so much innovation. I personally believe that NFTs are the future of digital commerce, so I believe that everyone's going to have an NFT in their pocket. We have come a long way.
Sorry, it's just like, it's hilarious what you just said, actually, because we talk, and very true what you said as well. When we talk to lawyers, right, for the tools that I mentioned before, I always ask about what kind of fraud did this person had. And most of the time they tell me it's pig butchering, Roman scams. And most of the time, these are not crypto scams. So they always start anyway from a bank account, your credit card, your debit card, or your basically naivety in a way, right? As our naivety or our innocence or our inexperience. Unfortunately, this is basically what it is. And then, of course, we have to label them as crypto scams. But, they are minority, really, when we are looking at the numbers. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, I just wanted because I think it's fair to say, right?
Opportunists come from everywhere.
Yeah.
And when there's opportunity, there's going to be a potential scam, and you've got to look at the reasons behind that.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I got into blockchain in the first place is because I believe that, it's not rocket science, but talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And scams and fraud happen because people don't feel like they've got the same opportunity, but perhaps they've got the talent.
Thank you. Mo, do you have, what's your perspective on regulation and maybe also fraud and scam as a side note?
I mean, it's coming, if we like it or not.
Which one, scams or regulation?
Well, scams are here, but scams have been here before the space was here, to Ross's point. I think regulation is inevitable. Regulation is always a laggard behind innovation. But I think what we have is as a space and as a wider community is an opportunity to self-regulate prior to regulation hitting, because then we're at the mercy of the regulators as opposed to being at the mercy of ourselves. And when we speak about Web3, we speak about crypto, what we haven't really touched on is decentralization and what that actually means. And we know it means ownership of our assets, but what it actually means is you have some form of social equity. You have a voice. And we've seen DAOs. We haven't spoken about DAOs, so maybe I'll spend a minute on DAOs. DAOs, by and large, have been amazing experiments so far. We've seen a few DAOs that are still around today and functioning. ApeCoin DAO is probably one of the most notable ones that's still about. But there's been a lot of friction. And part of the reason why there's been a reputation layer that's been missing within the industry. But I think we're a lot closer to, when I say we, not just at Animoca brands, but within the industry, there are multiple different plays going for the reputation angle. And once that reputation layer is in place, all of a sudden, if I'm a bad actor, that's going to impact my reputation within an ecosystem. And it doesn't have to be as dark as a certain Black Mirror episode, but it's definitely a way where if I'm transacting with someone, for example, I know this person has a good history. Or if someone's going into a game or voting on something, I mean, a very quick example, there's an odd number of us on the stage, so there's three of us here. Lisa's the legal expert, but and there's three of us having a vote on something legal based, we can outvote her if it's token weighted voting and we have a token each, which makes no sense because her reputation should actually mean she has a higher weighting in what she's voting on because she's the expert in that instance. So we have an opportunity to self-regulate, and I think let's see what happens in this space, but regulation is coming if we like it or not, and it's coming at different speeds depending on the different jurisdiction that you're operating in.
Can I add something? Because it's very interesting what you said about decentralization. And I was actually shocked to see that MiCA, the Market in Crypto Assets Regulation, still hasn't defined decentralization. And actually there will be a consultation this year. I was like next year. No, this year, later this year. And I was just like, extremely surprised. But then when you read the text, you know that, of course, I mean, it's very complete and there is absolutely everything you need to know so far to date. But there are also a lot of gray areas, especially for DeFi, or especially for DAOs as well. Where does the responsibility fall? On which person? There are a lot of gray areas still. Even if it's a great stepping stone towards having a better ecosystem for all of us, because I mean at the end of the day we will need regulations. We know we need them. They're here, so we have to say that as well. So we need them. We need to protect the customers. I mean, they are there to protect us at the end of the day. That we are on both ends, customers and also makers and doers and businesses. So yeah, it's a bifold things. So,
thank you, Lisa. What is your perspective on regulation?
Picking up particularly on something Mo said just then, which is about the industry creating voluntary standards. I think that's really powerful, actually. The main thing that everybody grapples with Web3 technology, it's not unique, actually, to Web3 technology either, is this dissonance between global technology that applies on a global basis and a plethora of different national regulations applying across Europe or in the US with a slightly more enforcement-led approach. And that obviously is really hard to manage when your project, it's just global by default. So I know a lot of projects really battle with that and trying to figure out how you keep on top of all that regulation. And the places where it really stifles innovation is when you've got a small project and they just don't have that budget. So it is really preventative for people getting their project up and running. And from a founder's perspective, you sort of go from zero regulation to 100 million miles an hour because you're dealing with criminal penalties given this kind of guillotine of the financial regulatory regime hanging over the top of everything. That's where we need to find a solution. And as regards the regulatory protection for consumers, the courts have started to put in place these routes of recourse for people so that they can find redress from crypto fraud and scams. They can now, as Sara said, airdrop an NFT on a person unknown if you've had some sort of fraud or hack, and you can find your money. But that's quite expensive from a consumer's perspective. And I know, Sara and the team, you've got the costs down, but nonetheless, if the industry were to evolve globally applicable standards to say, well, if we receive service of legal proceedings or notification, then this is the way that a marketplace will respond. That would be really helpful, I think, to allow the regulators to keep pace with innovation. As regards NFTs, you've got also an overarching terminology that regulates a technology, but a million different use cases for that, and it doesn't always necessarily make sense. It's not clear where the boundaries are, because in Web3, the categories of projects often blur the boundaries. You can have a social project that's also maybe providing ownership of different asset classes. Projects change over time. Even there's NFT standards that switch between fungible and non-fungible. And the regulators interpret fungible in different ways as well. So if you've got a collection, then they may interpret that as being fungible if the collection's sufficiently large. So projects just need more clarity on these issues, and I suppose the industry, beginning with defining what clarity looks like, what safe harbors should exist for good and responsible innovation, would be really good. I think that would be very helpful in driving regulation in a better direction.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And this is this is also the perspective that we were seeing here in Switzerland. We, as the Crypto Valley Association, we were participating in a paper that was addressed to the FATF, Financial Action Task Force, I think 2 years ago. And the main purpose of the paper was actually to educate the regulator and tell them, guys, please, NFT is not one thing. There are a wide variety of different use cases, and please do not overreact and overregulate all of it with one thing, calling it the NFT regulation, and prohibit everything. Please address that all step by step, case by case. And I think what was also interesting for me to learned during that paper was that, well, fraud and things that the regulator usually tries to address can be addressed in different ways in our industry. We don't need to do AML, KYC like a traditional bank and collect copies of paper documents issued by some place. We have the technology, we have the blockchain, we have Chainalysis and Elliptic and even more than just that. So there is a whole new possibility to, well, regulate or introduce the risk, but not killing it with old tools applied to new technology.
Yeah, totally.
Any final words before we open the stage for questions and conversation? Ross?
Nothing specific from me, although what I will say is that I encourage everyone to be here at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
To hear two of our most esteemed panelists pitch their businesses. So I'll be on stage at 6 p.m. talking a little bit more about Rand.
Likewise, absolutely. Look forward to seeing you later. And I mean, one last word definitely is like, something that one of our advisors tell us all the time is like, technology changes. I mean, you cannot just build technology. You need to build a culture. You need to also build solutions. So I think that is crucial for us in the next wave. Listen, to your users and start building tangible solutions. And I think that's also a way to really overcome these regulations hurdles that we have.
Thank you. Well,
NFTs are not dead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Lisa? What?
I'd like to just focus on the convergence of technology. I think that's where NFTs will be most useful and interesting, where we see kind of smart cities and data economies coming to life over the next year. So I'm really interested to see where everything goes in 2024.
Great. Thank you. So without further ado, are there any questions from the audience? You can ask anything. Yes, please.
There are no silly questions, so.
No. Hi, I'm Myra. So I'm like really big in NFT. Like I tweet about it. I spent like $2 million NFT crash. So I always imagine that NFT is my digital herman. So I really like the topic, the panel. So Mohamed, I follow your Twitter. I'm in your Mocha farm now. The question could be to Ross. I know that you're running the marketplace, and before everyone in Ethereum, this year, since last year, of course, I do think NFT in Bitcoin space are way more bigger than Ethereum now. And I do help clients in other chain, public chain, to spend $1 million to promoting their chain NFT. Right now, I think the only potential is maybe Solana. Everyone is buying Solana chain NFT.
Yeah.
So Rose, how could you attract user to buy NFT in your chain?
That's a very good question. So, look, I said it a little bit before. I believe NFTs can be the future of digital commerce. Now, I don't believe that's going to happen on less efficient chains, shall we say. There are some very good chains out there. We didn't really talk about it, but like real estate. How do you represent real estate as an NFT? So if you look at the way Algorand or Ripple have been built, they've actually natively built NFTs into the blockchain so that on Algorand, for example, you've got things like clawback and freeze. So you can actually represent a piece of land as an NFT and give that to someone because it can be frozen in their wallet. And then if that person's found out to be a bad actor, whatever the case, you can then claw back that NFT. So there are some really interesting use cases that are being developed on perhaps chains that have better technology, shall we say. And that's one of the reasons that we were attracted to Algorand in the first place. So that's point number one. Point number two, when token. So look, if we look at our business, it's 70% speculative at this stage. And so a token will really help attract a new audience that is perhaps looking at a token appreciation. So we have a token coming out at the end of this year, and if you look at perhaps the JPEG store on Cardano, they've quietly done around 200 million in volume on perhaps a chain that doesn't really have a huge amount of activity, and that has been centered around a token launch. Now, there is, I'm sure there's panelists who know this much better than I. A token is fraught with peril, and a poorly constructed token is going to leave you in the depths of hell. But if it's well constructed and actually provides proper utility over a long period of time, it should attract a new user base. And then point number 3 is that our job is, we're creator-led, so we are here for our creators, and our job is to highlight the creativity on-chain in the best way that we can. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Just to add a tiny bit on top, and I agree with more or less everything you have said. It's having, like, when Blur came about, OpenSea was a dominant force, and Blur's narrative was actually, like, forget creators, let's give back to the traders. Let's zero royalties, and that was the driving force behind Blur. And then what sort of kept everyone was this Blur token airdrop. So this idea of new wealth. And then we saw season 1 of the token airdrop for Blur. And then I was like, all right, great. They've done season 1. The token prices started to crash. What's going to happen next? And then they're launching an L2, which now you're staking your rewards from season 1 and season 2 into that. So it's, I guess, to the point of when you launch a token, there's no going back. When you launch anything on chain, there's no going back. But to answer your question, it's fundamentally, what's the underlying value proposition of the marketplace, and do people in the space buy in? And then what's your incentive structure, and is it sustainable? I think if you have a good balance there, then knowing crypto, you just need the right, maybe key opinion leaders, the right influencers on Twitter, on X, maybe on other platforms, to really be pushing the narrative, so you can start seeing conversions happen onto different marketplaces.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, behind there.
Hi, it's Caroline. I've been one of the early birds. I built the Deloitte blockchain showroom 7 or 8 years ago. I can't even remember, I get older. What is really intriguing for me in the whole crypto community is who and why, or why and who could start defining NFTs in a more clearer way. Because no matter with whom we speak professionally about NFTs, everyone applies something else. From a simple pro-up, a collectible, an asset, and even in the crypto community, we are sometimes not putting the right words of the value of the NFT or the meaning of the NFT or the technicality and the functionality of the NFT into that NFT. So for me, I'm not a good person if it comes to these kind of classifications, but what I don't understand is why is no one from our whole community starting to make a better classification than NFTs?
I think it's happening,
Yes,
but it is happening. It's happening very. I think it's a great point, first and foremost, that you're raising. It is happening very slowly. It's, again, over the past maybe 12 months, we've started to see NFTs being used in different ways. And as it happens, it's an iterative process. So that's a team. That's a word I say all the time to my team. It's about iterating. It's about improving on what we have. And I think we probably have a good lay of the land as to a number of different use cases for NFTs, but too many. But no, I completely agree that this is why. But anything we put on chain isn't an experiment, and then you see what happens. And it's like me being a mathematician. It's a hypothesis test. This is the hypothesis. Let's see what comes back from that instance. And some experiments are amazing successes. Other experiments are failures. But the point is that each of them give us learning opportunities, and within that learning, it allows us to be able to articulate more about what the different types of NFTs can be. And then when we talk about classifications, I'm sure we can spend ages from a legal perspective talking about different classifications. So I agree. I don't think we're there yet, I guess is probably my...
Could you speak into your mic? Could you speak into your mic? Thanks.
Who is currently hosting today from Crypto Valley? Is there someone here?
Yeah.
Sure, here.
So hosting there.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
one of the board
Same.
member of the Crypto Valley Association, and we
Yeah.
have Ilya here in the audience, and Katharina running around.
Yeah,
So
Katharina I saw
Yes.
on Sunday, but yeah, I think really this is for me the Crypto 2024 would be if we can as a community get to a better classification.
Yeah, sorry. It's just like, the thing is, well, right, NFTs more level, at least from my point of view, it's a collective noun. It's like music, but after music, under music, there are different types of genre. So you've got the R&B, you've got the classic music, you've got so many different types of music. So now, I'm used to actually explain concepts in a very simple, like, plain way. But I think, that is where we probably need to start clarifying things, right? There is the NFT. Let's keep it as the technology, like, let's have a technological definition of that. And just below, let's start building use cases. Similar to music, collective noun. And then, we just have down there, like a lot of different types of genre. Same thing. We got e-tickets, we got PFPs, we got games, we got whatever. And then, as well, we need to have some legal definition as well. So, for instance, membership. Non-regulated, NFT as a collection, perhaps is regulated. So that is something that I believe Lisa was planning to do anyway at some point, right, Lisa? I don't want to talk for you. Perhaps you can say what you were. Yeah.
I think that clarity is happening, and it would be really beneficial for organizations like Crypto Valley and us lawyers and projects to come together and try to provide more clarity and forward-looking, horizon-scanning descriptions for regulators, because there's this definition of fungible, which is kind of based on the fact that regulators think that anything that's exchangeable for one another should be regulated more highly because it's similar to a financial instrument. But then you've got all these different use cases which are constantly changing, and I suppose it's just trying to bring all that together with the technology as it's being created to put in place some predictions so that perhaps the regulation might evolve in a more friendly way and we can create more safe harbors. But I suppose it's just difficult because it kind of is fuzzy. At the moment, we're pushing boundaries with the technology, and, can you create this feature that enables this use case to happen? It's just all moving on pretty fast. And so I suppose this is where, thought leadership can play a really important role.
Yeah.
And also, you probably remember from old days, TradFi industries or investors were saying, oh, we are totally into blockchain. We just don't like Bitcoin. And things like that. It's like blockchain, crypto, NFT. And slowly we have different use cases which are precisely named and addressed. No one talks anymore about the fundamental technology, which is the blockchain below all of that. So we're getting there. I'm quite sure. Do we have time for one last question? There was something in the back. Okay, so sure.
Thank God we don't call it distributed ledger technology anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Who rebranded us to Web3? We need to find that guy. Help him. Help them, shall I say? Rebrand NFTs for us.
Hi guys, this is Zach from All Eyes Found, and we focus on pre-seed round to seed round stage of Web3 project. And my question is that if there is only one category to choose about an NFT like RWA, PFP, Gen AI art collection, and so on, what is the next wave of NFT at 2024? For example, we have PFP narratives at 2022 to 2023. And if there's only one category you guys can choose, like gaming or others, what are you guys choosing? Thank you.
I guess non-financial advice from
Yes,
everyone.
exactly. Like say, non-financial.
To begin with, I guess.
You go.
Why limit yourself? Right, I guess that's the first question. Everything is happening in parallel. I guess you're looking for what the next big wave is. But I think it's going to come from several different angles. We've already spoken about that on stage. You're obviously going to be pushing the gaming angle, and that, for me, is going to be a huge opportunity to get us to mass adoption. if we can abstract away the technology. But we've also spoken about PFPs and speculation having its place in the market over the year or 2 or 3 years, whatever to come. And then we've spoken about actually real-world assets and their role during this panel. So I think, boring answer is there's a role for everything. If I had to put it, given I've probably already answered that question in saying that the large percentage of our business is still speculation, and so that's going to really fuel our growth for some time to come. Having said that, my job is to stay on top of innovation and make sure that everyone is catered for.
Yeah, from my side, I mean, I stick to what we do, which is basically tokenization of processes and tokenization of knowledge and underlying assets that you are not even aware to have, actually. So I think for us that is one of the key focus for us. But then outside of that, I can definitely see how AI and NFTs are really taking over. There will be totally different new wave of AI-powered NFTs, or and you never know. There will be definitely that's going to come. That's definitely something that we're gonna see more and more, I think.
For me, it's easy. NFTs with token airdrop. I think that's the current narrative. Will be the narrative throughout 2024. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Fundamentally,
absolutely,
and that's what the speculators want. How can we get more money?
Come to Rand.
I guess, the bit I find most exciting that I hope will happen in 2024 is metaverse applications. So use of NFTs to unlock really cool experiences where you kind of online, offline, and maybe integrated with traditional brands. And we've seen a little bit of that happening with brands like Nike and Adidas and Starbucks. And it could just be really exciting if you have this digital identity that you buy into through collectibles that are also engaging. You can support your favorite artist or your favorite football team, and thereafter you unlock a whole other world that interacts with the physical world in different ways. We've got smart cars now, electric vehicles, and there's increasing amounts of screens around. How could we unlock the sort of connectedness of the Web3 ecosystem using NFTs and identity? That's what I hope will happen anyway.
Thank you. I think we're all very excited to see what the next bull market will bring, what technology, what use cases. It will be exciting. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Welcome.
I think
Thank you.
more questions can be addressed later.